I found this poem on a website called poemhunter.com. The title is In Community, but the author was just listed as Sailing to Windward. In community lies strength of numbers to support the sick and the weak. In community, somebody hears me with louder voices to speak. In community lies public purpose to shield from the harshness of life, to offer and receive common friendship, to protect from the gun and the knife. In community, we teach each other about science and art and sport. From this, we gain our vitality, and through this, our sickness is fought. In community, others surround us. Their dreams, their love, and their faces encourage our hearts to prosper, our minds to accept other places. In community, disaster may come, but grief shared and faith in our all makes death's pall linger less strongly. Our tears with others can fall. In community lies man's ambition. Without makes larger our fears. Together we make sense of being and bring joy and length to our years. When I first read this poem, I couldn't help but think about just how much we depend on each other for support, but also how fortunate we are to be experiencing this pandemic in a time of such available and varied electronic communication. I wonder what it must have been like for my dad's family when my grandfather was stricken with the 1918 flu. My father told me that my grandmother treated her husband with mustard plasters, and he did survive, but I never heard about whether or not the family quarantined or how they kept in touch with others. In doing a little research, I found out that the telephone company at that time told people to limit calls to those that were absolutely essential, because many telephone operators were out sick. I also think about what it might have been like if this had happened when I was a young single teacher. My parents had retired to Florida when I was 26, so my local community consisted mainly of my teaching colleagues, my friends at East Shore, and a longtime high school friend. My aunts, uncles, and cousins were spread all over the country, and in those days, long-distance calls were very expensive, so they were reserved for holidays and emergencies. We did a lot of letter writing. How would school have continued if this had happened in the 1970s? With no computers, I can't even imagine how I would have done my job. How would East Shore have been able to maintain our community back then? In this era, I am actually connecting with long-distance friends and family more than usual via phone, text, and sometimes Facebook or FaceTime. I so appreciate the church members and staff who have helped us to do this in various ways online with our East Shore community. I do miss singing in the 3 choral groups in which I used to participate, and who knows when it could again be possibly safe to gather and sing. However, the many different ways to find, share, and experience music online does help. Of course, I am so lucky to have Ron with whom to share this strange adventure on a daily basis. But I miss all of you, and I hope that you, too, are finding successful ways to stay connected in this amazing digital age. Peace.
Hi, this is Maggie. I'm going to read a short piece of poetry that my mother wrote to my father after they were engaged in a book that they shared back and forth, and each wrote memories to each other. A wave on a pebble, a gull on a rock, the sifting of sand as it dries in the sun, these are the sounds I have heard with you. A rough-hewn wall is at my back, and one which has no door, but a whole new world with shining crests and a key in my hand lie before.
I met a man today on the trail above the lake, walking toward me with a question on his face. The full length of my body between us just to keep safe. It was the closest I had been to someone in at least 9 or 10 days. I missed his words the first time with my headphones over my ears. He said again, tell me son, how long has this been here? We talked about construction that happened this past year. It took some time to get back to work after they finished up the pier. He told me I used to live in that building there, you know. They first started talking about this 50 years ago. Maybe I'll move back here, he said as he turned to go. It was good to talk to you, I said over the waves crashing down below. I'd forgotten the euphoria of making casual conversation. Midnight in another room or halfway across the nation. I never would have guessed I'd miss in-person interaction, but I couldn't help but smile as I continued on with little hesitation. I'm trying my best to stay in touch with the people I love. I guess the point I'm trying to make is I could really use a hug.
This is Not the End of the World by Neil Hilborn. I've been hearing that the world is ending. I've heard it so much these days that I can either completely ignore it or never leave my house again. That is, if I actually left my house for things that don't directly enable me to keep my house. See, I've been thinking about driving nowhere. I've been thinking about becoming a box inside a locked room, inside a dark house at the end of the street. I want to go away until I'm gone. It takes so much more energy to not exist than it does to exist and get burned. I've been burned so much that I'm not me anymore. I'm a stupid puppet version of me. I've got strings that lead to nowhere. Nothing is pulling on me. I wish someone would drag my hand out of hiding and sign my name on a dotted line. There are days I can't find the sun, even though it's right outside my window. When getting out of bed feels like the key in the doomsday machine. So on those days, this is what I tell myself. Whatever it is you are feeling right now, there is a mathematical certainty that someone else is feeling that exact thing. This is not to say you're not special. This is to say, thank God you aren't special. I, too, have kissed no one goodnight. I've launched myself from tall places and hoped no one would catch me. I've ended relationships because suddenly I was also exposed. Isolation is not safety, it's death. If no one knows you're alive, you aren't. If a tree falls in a forest and no one's around to hear it, it does make a sound, but that sound is gone. I'm not saying you will find the meaning of life in other people. I'm saying other people are the life to which you provide the meaning. See, we're wrong when we say, I think, therefore I am. The more we say it, the more it sounds like, I think, therefore I will be. You can't think yourself into a full table. You can't think and make walls and a roof appear around you. I've thought myself into corners made of words and nightmares. And what has it gotten me? But more thoughts, a currency that only buys more currency. So please, if you want to continue existing, do something. Learn to make clouds using only your breath. Build a house, even if every wall leans to the left. Love it anyway, just like a season, just like a child. Love how you hate yourself sometimes, because at least there's still something to hate. I know how easy it is to think and keep thinking until you're the last person left on earth, until the entire world becomes no larger than the space between your bed and the light switch. But I hear the world is ending soon. When we go, and we're all going to go, I will be a part of it. Do you ever hear a poem a million times and then one day things happen in your life or the world to change the meaning completely? I struggled to find the right poem for today's service and kept coming back to this poem, one of my favorites, this piece by Neil Hilborn, even though I had used the same piece for our last poetry service. I reread it and it hit me in completely new ways. The poem talks about the isolation of mental illness and choosing to engage with the world. But today, isolation is something we are all struggling with to one degree or another. There's this line in the poem: isolation is not safety, it's death. This line struck me in particular. Right now, we are all isolating for safety, to help one another stay healthy, yet trying our best to help one another stay connected. Our physical isolation has in some ways given us the opportunity to create deeper social connections and reach out to those around us in new ways. I've seen more people find ways to create support and outreach in their community over the past month than ever before. Whatever it is you're feeling right now, there is a mathematical certainty that someone else is feeling that exact thing. This line, this is something that we are all going through together. It has touched everyone's lives and caused a greater awareness of just how much our world is interconnected. It has shown us just how much we need each other and how much we need to choose to engage. As Hilborn says, other people are the life to which you provide the meaning.
I'm going to read you my favorite poem. I return to it every so often, and I think I actually read it at a service a couple of years ago, and I always get something different from it, whether it's celebrating the things that are going right or recognizing that things sometimes do not go so well. Sometimes things don't go after all, from bad to worse. Some years, muscatel faces down frost. Green thrives, the crops don't fail. Sometimes a man aims high and all goes well. A people sometimes will step back from war, elect an honest man, decide they care enough that they can't leave some stranger poor. Some men become what they were born for. Sometimes our best intentions do not go amiss. Sometimes we do as we meant to. The sun will sometimes melt a field of sorrow that seemed hard frozen. It may happen for you. That poem has become part of my family's tradition of readings we add to the Haggadah during the Seder, and we read it last week. I had a virtual Seder with my parents and my siblings, and we usually read it after the Jewish people escaped from Pharaoh and have made it safely across the Red Sea. And I've been thinking about everything that's happening in the world, and there's one particular line in the poem: some men become what they were born for. And it seems to me that whenever I accomplish something great or get through something difficult, it's always more meaningful when I have one or more people to thank at the end. because it tells me that I am connecting with my community and I'm building connections and nurturing relationships with people. And so to me, that is just striking to me right now when I read that poem. Again, I always get something different from it every time I come back to it, and that's what I'm taking away from it right now.
I have a poem here that I will be reading on behalf of Marie Nightengale, who wrote it. A poem about community. We are all one, stardust in changed forms, interconnected by 6 degrees of separation, TG for communication, with or without publication, sharing and caring, not staring or comparing. Remembering we are a part of the whole, but hopefully not as silent as those letters W and E in whole. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Sun, 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 here it comes. 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 Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. It's alright.
This is a poem by Jane Hirschfield, a poet and essayist who is a Guggenheim Fellow ordained as a lay priest at the San Francisco Zen Center. It's called For What Binds Us. There are names for what binds us. strong forces, weak forces. Look around, you can see them. The skin that forms in a half-empty cup, nails rusting into the places they join, joints dovetailed on their own weight. The way things stay so solidly wherever they've been set down. And gravity, scientists say, is weak. And see how the flesh grows back across a wound with great vehemence, more strong than the simple, untested surface before. There's a name for it on horses when it comes back darker and raised. Proud flesh. As all flesh is proud of its wounds, wears them as honors given out after battle, small triumphs pinned to the chest. And when two people have loved each other, see how it is like a scar between their two bodies, stronger, darker, and proud. How the black cord makes of them a single fabric that nothing can tear or mend.
Hi, I'm Jessie Jones. I'm talking today about community, but in the contradictory context of our current crisis. Right now, as connection within and between communities happens largely through technology, without human touch or the subtleties of in-person interaction, our individual experience of community can feel like the only concrete aspect. It may seem like much is beyond our control at this time, though in truth at all times, it is only our own actions, reactions, and interactions that are within our control. Who are we as individuals within the fabric of community? How do we show up for ourselves and others to fill our corner of community? A sense of belonging is a part of our individual experience of community. Poet-philosopher David Whyte observes a thought-provoking aspect of belonging. In his words, "To feel as if you belong is one of the great triumphs of human existence, and especially to sustain a life of belonging and to invite others into that." But it's interesting to think that our sense of slight woundedness around not belonging is actually one of our core competencies. That though the crow is just itself, and the stone is just itself, the mountain is just itself, and the cloud, and the sky is just itself, we are the only one part of creation that knows what it's like to live in exile, and that the ability to turn your face toward home is one of the great human endeavors and the great human stories. It's interesting to think that no matter how far you are from yourself, no matter how exiled you feel from your contribution to the rest of the world or to society, that as a human being, all you have to do is enumerate exactly the way you don't feel at home in the world, to say exactly how you don't belong. And the moment you've uttered the exact dimensionality of your exile, you're already taking the path back to the way, back to the place you should be. You're already on your way home. For another perspective on the role of the individual within community, I turn to Maya Angelou. In her poem, A Brave and Startling Truth, she writes about coming to the truth of the impact we have individually within the fabric of community, of society. Here's an excerpt. "We, this people, on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living. Yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness, that the haughty neck is happy to bow and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people, on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible, we are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world. That is when, and only when, we come to it." Thank you.
Each month, we share our loose offering, funds not directed toward pledge fulfillment, with different partner organizations. This month, our partner organization is the Northeast Ohio Music Heritage Association. Because we have less opportunity to collect loose offerings, not meeting in physical space, we invite you to instead go to their website, scroll down, and click the Donate Now button to give securely online and help ensure that folk music continues to live vibrantly in the region. If you do choose to send in funds for loose offering, that money will remain with East Shore. So please, if you have the extra funds available, support the Northeast Ohio Music Heritage Association at their website. Speaking of pledge fulfillment, we're still waiting on some pledge cards to be returned. I know because, well, here's mine. There's lots of reasons to stall. There's so much going on right now, even though we all have to stay in one place. I didn't have any stamps up until recently, but, well, now I do. So the time has come. Please consider making your pledge go up. And then, pick it up and get it in the mail to East Shore. Speaking of which, excuse me for a moment. All of East Shore's events have been moved online, and in almost every instance will be happening on Zoom. So keep an eye out for the links to the meetings from the event's organizers. For example, there is a kid-teen chat on Tuesday and Friday in the afternoon this week, prayer circle with Rev Denis on Facebook Live Wednesday morning at 6:15 a.m., or you can watch the recording at a later time or date. We have an RE Faith Development class at 3 p.m. on Saturday, and Beverages and Banter will be held on Thursday afternoon at 2 p.m. and right after worship today. As soon as you finish up the YouTube playlist, head on over to Zoom with the link that was sent to you this morning via the listserv. We will also be monitoring the comments below the Facebook Live post from this morning for folks who still need the link. And now our benediction this morning, the oft-quoted poem from William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloodied, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And now I invite you to reach out. Physically, spiritually, metaphorically, poetically. As we end, as we always do, with our bond of union. And if you don't know the words, they are printed here within this lovely frame gifted to me upon the celebration of my joining the membership of East Shore. We join hands in Unitarian Universalist fellowship, pledging ourselves to an individual religious freedom that transcends all creeds, not to think alike, but to journey together.